Well, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Ryan Evans with the Center for Ag Profitability here at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And today is part of our regular Thursday webinar series that typically happens on Thursdays at noon. If this is your first time, we encourage you to find out more information about upcoming webinars and recordings of past sessions on our website, cap.unl.edu. And you can see on the screen there a schedule of upcoming sessions we have. And today we'll be looking at the 1923 South Platte River Compact and Nebraska water rights. And to present for us today, we have with us Dave Aiken, a professor in the Department of Agricultural Economics here at UNL. He's also an extension agricultural law and water law specialist. So Dave, take it away.
Okay, thank you very much. How's it look, Ryan?
Looks great.
That's great. Okay, today we're going to talk about the South Platte issue. That's been a big issue in Nebraska. The governor took some bold action in his proposed budget for the legislature, $500 million to complete the Perkins County Canal. And so we're going to talk a little bit about, what's going on in Colorado, what's not going on in Colorado, and, what are our water rights under the compact, which are not probably as robust as many people would have hoped. And then, where do we go from here? So some South Platte River compact fundamentals, some basic ideas. It was adopted or approved, by the states and Congress in 1923. It started off when Nebraska sued Colorado in 1916, alleging that Colorado was not shutting down junior appropriators in Colorado for the benefit of senior appropriators in Nebraska. And so, Nebraska filed the lawsuit, and the states ended up deciding to develop a compact. And the compact does protect the rights of Nebraska for the Western Canal that goes from eastern Colorado into western Nebraska, and I believe that the irrigation project irrigates lands on both sides of the state line. Not sure on that, but I believe that is the case. Anyway, the compact divides the South Platte River into two sections, the upper section and the lower section. And I'll show you on a map, try to show you on a map where the dividing line is. Significantly, Nebraska has no water rights in the upper section. That is, we can't tell Colorado to shut down junior appropriators who might be junior to the Western Canal in the upper section. We only have these water rights in the lower section, and I didn't know that, frankly. But Denver is in the upper section, and Denver is who we need to worry about in terms of reduced flows coming into Nebraska. Okay, the compact negotiated in from what I understand at this point, I think it was to deal with the Western Canal situation, to make sure that Colorado would administer junior water rights in Colorado that were junior to the 1897 Western Canal appropriation date. And the 120 cubic feet per second, or CFS, that Nebraska gets under the compact is, in my opinion, largely to supply the Western Canal. And I think that's how they did it. In addition, in the lower section, Nebraska is entitled, the lower section of the South Platte, Nebraska is entitled to up to 500 CFS off season. That's, the irrigation season under the compact is April 1st to October 15th. So off season is the reverse, October 15th to April 1st. And during the off season, we're entitled to up to 500 CFS for the Perkins County Canal. However, Colorado has the right to develop storage for up to 35,000 acre feet in Colorado in the lower section of the river. Okay, I want to convert CFS flow number into acre feet, which is volume. And down there towards the bottom, it's 1 CFS is equal to 1.98 acre feet per day. So that's, I call it 2 acre feet per day. So, you can multiply through the 500 CFS, times 2 times how many days you get. And that ends up being 165 acre feet. 165,000 acre feet. And if Colorado has developed all the way up to its 35,000 acre feet of storage that it can divert, those off-season diversion rights would be senior to the Perkins County Canal. And so the net that we could get at 500, the max, or we'd get somewhere between 165 and 130,000 acre feet at 500 CFS, depending on how much storage occurs that is, after the compact in the lower section of the river. Okay, 300 CFS, the minimum we would get is 64,250 CFS. The minimum we would get is 47,000 acre feet. So that's, that just gives you some numbers to think about in terms of how much water we might get if we developed the County Canal and were able to successfully defend its water rights against Colorado. Now, how much is this water costing? Well, ballpark, if we get 50,000 acre feet and it's $500 million, it's 10,000 acre feet. It's likely going to be more than 500 million. Hopefully it would be more than 50,000 acre feet, but that's a ballpark figure to compare to some of the Colorado figures that we'll be looking at later in the webinar. Okay, here's a map. Oh, good. Here's a map that gives you, we get all the state of Nebraska and all the state of Colorado, so it's good for that. Right, this is the North Platte. This is the South Platte. Down here is the Big Bend River where the crane habitat is. This is North Platte, for the North Platte and the South Platte River meet. This would be Big Springs here on the Nebraska side, Julesburg here on the Colorado side, and here where Washington County, which is this one, and Morgan County, which is this one, right where this little notch is, that's the dividing line between the upper section and the lower section. I'm going to say reach, but the compact section. Denver is down here, so that's just a little geographical orientation, and that's this is the part of the South Platte that we have water rights to, and this is the part of South Platte we don't have water rights to. Okay, this is a little clearer. Here's it's a county map for Colorado, and here's Washington County, here's Morgan County, and here's the river, and here's the dividing line. Here's the dividing line. So that's the lower is this part, and and then the uppers is part of that. Here's, where that is Nebraska. Okay, so let's take a quick look at at the South Platte Basin. Where I'm assuming I'm having a largely agricultural audience here today, and so we're going to kind of take a look at it from the agricultural producer perspective. In 2007, which is where I get this irrigation information, a little report from somebody in the Colorado Division of Water Resources. They had close to 1 million acres that were irrigated, and that's 30. That was at that time that was 30% of Colorado's total irrigated acres. More recent reports have the amount of irrigated acres in the South Platte Basin at under 900,000 acres, and we will discuss why that is, but a lot of that has to do with the drought. Okay, back in 2007, they were into the drought then, but anyway, these are the numbers that they presented in 2007. 550,000 irrigated with surface water. That compares to 16% for all of Nebraska that's irrigated with surface water in Nebraska. So the proportion of surface water acres versus groundwater acres irrigated in the two states are very different. In Nebraska, the groundwater acres predominated. It's 84%, give or take. And in Colorado, groundwater is only 17%. So the politics are kind of reversed. The irrigators surface water irrigators kind of call the shots politically in Colorado, and the groundwater irrigators are kind of the little brother in that scenario. So 17% comes of the roughly 1 million acre feet is from wells, and then there's just under 300 acre feet that are primarily irrigated with surface water, and then they have wells for supplemental if the surface water peters out, and that's a large, 28%. In the South Platte, the state says that there's 9,000 irrigation wells that have gone through the court process to get their groundwater rights decreed in a matter of record, but they think that some of those wells have been abandoned. This was back in 2007. And beginning in 2002, which is when the drought began in Colorado, the drought that they still have, by the way, close to 5,000 irrigation wells were shut off, beginning in 2002, and the number I believe grew. It was maybe 4,000 in 2002, and then it's as the drought really dug in, there's less surface water available for groundwater irrigators to buy to use to replace stream flow that their wells would have depleted. If the wells who were junior, because the water right, the surface water rights go back to before 1900, and the wells, of course, came in much later. There's not the surface water that they use to meet the calls on the river. We're not there because of the drought, and because of the drought, there was less water stored, and they needed more surface water. Irrigators took more water out of the reservoirs to irrigate with, and so there's the leftover water that might have been there in the past wasn't there for the groundwater irrigators to purchase to meet their stream flow replacement requirements. So that shut down close to 5,000 wells, over half. That's pretty dramatic. Imagine shutting down 20% of all the irrigation wells in Nebraska, or in some basin in Nebraska with Republican, or some NRD or something. that would be, it was front page news there, and it would be front page news here. But it's a pretty big deal. And then the state put close to 1,000 other wells, 30%. They only get 30% of what they originally pumped, so that means they only get to pump 2 days a week, basically. Surface water, in terms of supply, I probably should have started with that. 1.4 million acre feet is the long-term average supply in terms of the snow melt, precipitation, and then 400,000 or 0.4 million acre feet coming from the western slopes. That's the Trans Mountain Diversion that goes to Denver, and then so they get some return flow from that in the South Platte because Denver is in the South Platte, and so that's a 1.8 million acre feet is their average supply on an annual basis. Probably a lot less than that now because of the drought, but they have 4 million acre feet of irrigation diversions. So that tells you that there's a lot of reuse. That the further upstream you get, they divert surface water, use it. A bunch of it runs off. Maybe not as much as half, but a significant amount runs off, and those return flows go downstream where they're diverted, and so on. So 1.8 million acre feet of water and supply, and 4 million acre feet diversions. And I can guarantee they're not irrigating with 6 inches unless they have to. If that's all that they end up getting. Okay, so this is this should be the water supply background, I guess. 2002, that was the beginning of the ongoing 1,000-year drought in the Colorado River Basin. And so it's not just Colorado, but it's all through the Southwest, all the way to Southern California. That was the first year. In 2002, they shut off 4,000 junior wells because their replacement water was gone. Irrigation and agricultural interests in the South Platte Basin said, the state's got to help us do something to get some water so that we can turn these wells back on. And to my knowledge, those wells still don't pump. So that wasn't, they were shut down for 1 year. They've been shut down for 20 years, some of them. So to try to do something about this, the South Platte Water Task Force was authorized. In 2010, the state published the Colorado Water Plan, update of an earlier plan. And under the plan, they identified that Denver was likely to double in population to over 6 million people by 2050, and that they would probably continue to purchase irrigation rights from irrigators in the South Platte Basin, and use the consumptive use, and use the consumptive use from the senior irrigator for as part of Denver's municipal water supply. And this is called buy and dry because they buy the irrigation rights and they dry up the irrigated land. And projections are that if Denver met its complete expected increased water needs between now and 2050, they would dry up around 340,000 irrigated acres. And that's a lot. That's a lot. That's maybe 40%, close to 40% of the 900,000 acres irrigated right now. So that was, that's buy and dry, and the agricultural interests in the South Platte said, well, we don't like buy and dry. We want Denver to look at other options that don't include the wholesale, basically destruction of our irrigated economy here in the South Platte River. And so the 2013, the governor fired up the water plan, Colorado water plan process. They've got plans for 8 regions around, based on river basins in Colorado, including South Platte Basin. Then they also have a state one. And each region has its own roundtable where they have all the water interests involved in the conversation. And this is a public process, so people can come to these meetings and say, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that, or something? So they write all that down, and that goes on their list of the 280 proposals or projects, as they have sometimes been referred to incorrectly in Nebraska. But it's there's not 280 real projects. There's just 280 ideas that somebody threw out at one of these dozens of meetings that they've had over the years. And so that 280 figure really does not mean anything, except that at the meetings they've had, there have been 280 some ideas thrown out and noted. Okay, there have been 2 updates under the 213 water plan process, and the one in 2015 for the South Platte, and then another one, next one in 2022. Okay, South Platte priority issues identified in the 2015 update. I like that. I like this because it's the ones that you can get that are not so full of bureaucratic gobbledygook that you can kind of understand what they are. But they said, we've got to address this projected 500,000 acre feet municipal industrial water supply gap by 2050, and that's mainly the Denver region, Denver metro. Although it's not that exclusively, but that's where most of the 500,000 acre feet is going to be needed. And they admit that, or they acknowledge that they're addressing the largest regional water supply gap in the state, because the South Platte Basin has the most population and the most culturally productive basin. So water uses are going to be high because of all the people and because of that productive ag, and based on irrigation, really. They want to try to reduce the buy and dry transfers of irrigation water rights to cities. And it could be the 340,000 acres. And so they want Denver to try to get some water, some of those 500,000 acre feet from someplace other than buying out irrigators in the South Platte. Okay, this is my favorite map because it's most helpful. It shows here's Denver down here, number 6. This is Greeley up here. They divide this is the upper basin that's in Colorado, the other upper South Platte, or the upper section, and then this down here, this quite smaller part, is the lower South Platte Basin. This black line are the basin boundaries, and that's very helpful. Number 4 is the red number 4 is the Western Canal, which is that dispute is what led to the compact, and so that's kind of a big deal. Then here's the Perkins area down here. So very nice map. See what's going on. Then here's the map that they are very aware of in Colorado. The Platte River program area is for managing the endangered species habitat down here, basically between Lexington and Columbus. And so that, whatever happens above that, has to take endangered species habitat into account. And they're very aware of that in Colorado. They're very aware of that they lost the Narrows project because they pretended endangered species didn't exist, and so they're very aware of it. Okay, the Colorado legislature commissioned the South Platte storage study, and saying how much water is available on the South Platte that could be stored, so that we could use some of that water to meet, the needs, the future needs in the basin, but also some of the current needs, maybe in terms of getting some of those wells turned back on again. And so they estimate the average surplus, and I put that in quotes, that leave Colorado and enter Nebraska, and they peg it at nearly 400,000 acre feet. Now, sadly, in their study, they're not clear about how much, is this all during the off season? Is that what the average flows are in the off season? It doesn't say. It says this is annual, and so that's the irrigation season is longer than the off season. It's 6.5 months for the irrigation season and 5.5 months for the off season. So it's going to be a smaller number than that, I suspect, but I don't know that. But the range is pretty impressive, from less than 100 to nearly 1,000. I mean, so that's quite that. You get floods and you get droughts, and then the average is in the middle. They adjusted this for some water stuff, basically stuff going from some irrigated to municipal water transfers that were sort of in that were ongoing or in process as of 2017 when the report was done. So that knocked it down a little bit. But if we get into an arm wrestling match with Colorado, we want to have our own numbers and make sure that they're correct. Okay, now we're coming to the 900-pound gorilla, which is Denver, in terms of the water future in the South Platte Basin. And this is a 2020 report called the South Platte Regional Opportunities Water Group Study. And the acronym is pronounced Sprog. I heard that in one of the things that I listened to. So that was, so we'll call it the Sprog project or the Sprog proposal, although it's not really a proposal yet. The study cost $304,000, so it's a big deal. And the group it's made up of city water managers and irrigation groups and outdoor recreation groups. Outdoor recreation is a big deal in Colorado, as you know, but they have a lot of interest in stream flow and seeing stream flow maintained, and in seeing that there are outdoor recreational opportunities available that help feed that big segment of the Colorado industry. And they get a lot more revenue from outdoor recreation than they do from agriculture in Colorado. Certainly on the in the South Platte Basin they do. So, but anyway, they looked at some options for capturing and storing additional water, and then pumping the water back up to Denver for treatment and reuse. And they would try to capture some of the return flows that would be coming down the tributaries, and then runoff before it gets to the lower section, and then pipe that water back to the lower section of the river. So before it crosses the upper section, lower section boundary, and once it passes in the lower boundary, then we have some claim on it, but in the upper section, we don't have a claim on it yet because it hasn't gotten to the lower boundary. So they basically, I think, and the way it's been described to me, and is that they probably want to get as much as they can before the water hits the lower section, and then is something that Nebraska has some claim to. And the storage, they're looking at up to 4 new reservoirs, and that's storage would range from total storage would range from 215,000 acre feet to 400 some thousand acre feet. So, it's not huge, but they're good sized. They're good sized, and they can store a lot of water. And this would benefit Denver quite a bit. The western slope interests say, you're not going to get more water from the western slope and reducing our water supplies until you do a better job of utilizing the water that you have, on the eastern slopes in the South Platte Basin. And so this would do that. It's hard to see that they could do more than this in terms of capturing and reusing water and stuff like that. And then the ag would also get them some goodwill from the South Platte ag community. Who says, the more of this that you can do, the less you're going to have to buy and dry. And so that's what we're looking at. But the amount of water that would be supplied to Denver and other municipalities would be 50,000 acre feet in normal years and wet years, and then 100,000 acre feet during drought years. So that's they don't talk about how much they would divert, but you have to wonder that they'll want to divert as much as they can. And this just gives you, some of the, what they think they would get from this project. There would be some water provided to irrigators as part of this plan, but not a huge amount. The bulk of the water would be going for municipal purposes. I would guess, 90, close to 90% of the water would be going for municipalities. The cost, if they don't treat the water, if all the water is untreated, then the cost is between $18,000 to nearly $23,000 an acre foot. And so, quite a bit more expensive than the 10 acre feet, $10,000 acre foot that we were looking at for Perkins County Canal. If all the water is treated, which is one of the options they looked at, that it would be between $2 and $3 billion. So I mean, it's big bucks here, big bucks. But we're talking about a lot of municipalities that they have lots of ways of being able to finance that. So this is a concept. They haven't picked a proposal, or they haven't picked one option of the 4. But I mean, maybe they have within the last 2 days, but it's nothing that has hit the media. So, but anyway, this is the project that we need to worry about. And this is a little bit what it looks like. And it's the county lines are a little faint here, so it's hard for me to tell precisely where the line is between the upper river section and the lower river section is, but I'm guessing it's downstream a little bit of this, and this looks like they're going to divert here and get it into this pipeline and back to Denver. That may be the low end, but then these orange circles are all storage facilities, potential storage facilities. Excuse me. So they could divert some here, divert some here, divert some here. And I don't understand this one. This one is clearly in the lower section. So I don't know if maybe they're going to do that and send it to Nebraska. I kind of doubt it, but who knows? Maybe that's the race in the hole to help us out with the Perkins County Canal. That's a joke. Okay, funding. We've heard about all this, you know, well, the Denver project is in the $2 to $3 billion price range, so it's very, very expensive. And you know, we've heard that that Colorado has sports betting, and when they passed that, when that got, you know, when that was approved by voters, I think in 2019, you know, part of that, you know, there's a 10% tax on the net receipts, and a portion of that, up to $19 million a year, is earmarked to go into the state water plan, where it would be, you know, and that money would be under the responsibility of the Colorado Water Resources Board, which is an awful lot like the Nebraska Natural Resources Commission. And I was able to find a report where they talked about where their funding had been, and they have grants, you know, where I think it's a 50% match, and then they have loans. Again, an awful lot like our Nebraska Natural Resources Commission with its different natural resource funding programs. But 63.5 million over that 6-year period went to 241 projects, or 262,000 per project in round numbers. And then for the loans, you know, they issue the bonds, but you know, bond a lot of projects there. 82 projects for about $5 million a project. A lot of these projects are what I'll call the mom and pop projects, you know, where irrigation district has a leak in their canal, so they apply to the Water Conservation Board funding to help them repair the leak in their canal, or they want to improve their head gates, make their head gates for diverting water more efficient. You know, they apply for that. Or the city needs help with their sewage treatment plant. Maybe they need to upgrade it or something like that. You know, it's this kind of stuff. It's not like every nickel is going into this Denver project, you know, to try to dry up the South Platte River, worst case scenario. You know, it's not all going for that. But clearly, as time goes on, if that project moves forward as I would expect it will, then you know, I could see them making applications for pieces of their project. You know, you could see that, you know, they've got a pipeline, they've got up to 4 reservoirs. You know, they're going to have diversion works and stuff like that, so they can put in lots of applications. But you know, $19 million a year doesn't get you to $1 billion very fast. So, you know, this, you know, the betting tax is not gonna pay for it. Okay, so what has the Nebraska response been? And we need to think of this in terms of kind of a political poker game. You know, we're entering a process where ultimately, I hope, we'll be negotiating something with Colorado to bring clarity to the compact and the Perkins Canal off-season storage rights, and you know, to make some kind of deal that, you know, maybe we won't get the whole 500 CFS or something like that, but we might get 300 CFS or 250 CFS or something like that, to maintain at least, probably not all the flows that we get from the South Platte now, but a good chunk, or maybe most of the flows for the South Platte. And you know, but anyway, so the governor's the $500 million proposal, which was front page news, of course, when that proposal was originally made, and every time, you know, they took a step along the way, there's another front page headline. You know, so it was a big deal because it's a lot of money and potential water fights, Colorado, and all. No, that's good. That has good news value. But that's, you know, that's kind of a shot across the bow, telling Colorado, okay, we see what you've got going on your side of the fence, and so, you know, we're gonna see your bid and raise it, something like that, and that's how I see the Perkins County Canal. That was the governor's proposal. The Appropriations Committee, you know, authorized, you know, basically 10% of it to get it started. But that's, I mean, that's credible. I mean, that's enough. We can do a lot of study, a lot of studies, get some design options. You know, look at you know, what is the reliable supply and all that kind of stuff. And there, you know, when the governor and when the director of the Nebraska Department of Water Resources, you know, addressed the legislative committees when they asked for the, you know, the 500 million, and then there's that went to the Appropriations Committee, and then there's LB 1015, which would authorize the Department of Water Resources to build the Perkins County Canal project. You know, there were lots of unanswered questions, but and that's frustrating. I mean, that's frustrating to me. You know, I'm sure it's frustrating to everybody else. However, we have to remember that there is a chance that this could end up being litigated in the U.S. Supreme Court. And because of that, state officials have to be very careful about what they say about what the deal is on the South Platte and the Perkins County Canal, because those statements potentially could come up and be used against Nebraska in any Supreme Court litigation about, you know, over what are the water rights for the Perkins County Canal. So frustrating that they don't say you know, what the deal is. Don't say, yeah, here's how much water we think there is, or anything. You know, they really can't say that because they're if they do anything that's precise or concrete, something that can be nailed down, that's something that could be, again, could be used by Colorado to hurt us in our future lawsuit if it turns out those statements were injudicious, or it turns out that we actually think that it turns out that there's actually more water than we think that would be available for Perkins County Canal than was stated at this hearing, or something like that. So they're not gonna be able to answer questions, but that's because we have this lawsuit potential lurking in the background. So you know, negotiation is almost always better than litigation, as long as people are willing to negotiate. Parties are willing to negotiate. So I think that you know, hopefully that Colorado would be willing to enter into serious negotiations on the South Platte South Platte Compact, and agreed to some sort of compromise with Nebraska. But you know, well, I mean, you know, that's a year or two or three maybe down the road. So we'll just have to see how it plays out. But I think it's helpful to think of you know, what's been in the Nebraska newspapers about the Perkins County Canal and stuff like that, and the stuff that's come from the State House and the legislature and so forth. We have to keep that all in mind of what's going on, vis-a-vis Colorado and what could be going on that could affect any lawsuit that this might lead to. Okay, I think that's it, Ryan. And so I will stop the screen share and turn it back to you.
All right, thanks a lot, Dave. We do have a few questions right here. And just a reminder, if you have questions for Dave based on his presentation today, he will work to answer as many as we can here in the time we have left together. Please type those into the Q&A box or into the chat box as well. And I will ask those to Dave. And Dave will start with a couple that came in right at the beginning of the presentation. So first question says, my understanding is that flows in the South Platte, particularly over the last several years, have not been sufficient to meet the stated right. So if the water is not there to meet the right, what happens?
Okay, under the compact, if the Western Canal is not getting the 120 CFS, then it needs it. It's it needs the water at that time. Then they notify Nebraska water officials. Nebraska water officials notify Colorado, and then Colorado under the compact has to shut off any appropriators in the lower reach that are junior to the 1897 water right for the Western Canal. At the time the compact was written, there were not a lot of diverters in the lower reach. But that's how it works. That's how it works, and it could be that we're in a drought. Colorado's in a drought, and so their flows are down, including flows on the South Platte. So I'm not surprised that there would be less than 120 CFS, and that's what happens in a drought. Is that the water just isn't there, and so what there is goes to the senior appropriators. But that's kind of how that works.
All right, thank you. Next question asks is the Western Canal in the upper or lower section, and why don't they run water down that canal in the off season right now instead of building a new canal?
Okay, the upper section of the river is up in the mountains, where Denver is, and so it's close to the middle of Colorado. The lower section of the river is the part on the boundary line, the eastern county line for Washington County, where that intersects the South Platte River. So it's about the bottom, maybe 30% of the river. I don't remember the rest of the question. Let me. So we're only entitled to the water that's in the lower reach, that's flowing in the lower reach. We can't go above that to get more water for Nebraska, whether it's during the irrigation season or the off season. That's our water rights begin at the dividing line between the upper and the lower reach. And so, the lower reach is the part that comes into Nebraska. Now, there was the last part of it. I'm not sure that I answered that.
There was a quick follow-up, I think, here. It says, why don't they use the Western irrigation canal in the winter right now?
I think that would be a possibility. And I'm sure that they do divert. It's just that we've never formally quantified a right or anything, to do it. But, we have the water coming in to Nebraska, whatever it is, during the off season, from October through to April, or the middle of October through to April. And I'm sure if they need it, they do divert it. I mean, that's, there's nothing to stop them. there's nothing in the compact that would prevent them from doing that. And some people who have been in favor of the governor's proposal have said, we want to try to keep things the way they are. We don't want the flows in the South Platte to diminish. And clearly this Denver proposal, I'm not a hydrologist, but if they did all the bells and whistles and everything else that's in their proposal, it's hard to see how that would not reduce the flows coming into Nebraska.
Mhm.
So I think that's what we need to be concerned about.
Great, thank you. We do have a lot of questions coming in, so just a reminder, if you have those, you can type them in the Q&A or the chat. We will work to get as many answered as possible. A number of questions about the availability of the slides presented today. Those will be posted along with the recording. We'll have a slight delay in posting that. It will be up next week, I expect on Monday afternoon at cap.unl.edu/webinars. That's our Center for Ag Profitability page. Next question, Dave. If I understood it correctly, one article I read on this talked about Nebraska going into Colorado and controlling some of the irrigation and water use on land in Colorado. So this attendee asks, is that true? And how can Nebraska do that?
Boy, that would be kind of a worst case scenario. I can't imagine us doing that. I can't imagine Nebraska doing that. The Western Canal is in Colorado. I mean, it diverts water from the South Platte River near Ovid, Colorado, I believe is the town, and diverts the water through Colorado into Nebraska. And is my understanding, the Western Canal helps irrigators both in Nebraska and Colorado, but I'm not absolutely sure about that. And I think it's in our interest to maintain a cooperative working relationship with the Department of Water Resources or Division of Water Resources in Colorado. So anything where Nebraska would send in the National Guard to try to shut off junior appropriators so that the Western Canal got its water or something. I would hate to see that happen, and I'm pretty sure that would not be. I'm not sure that would be covered in the compact. Whether the compact gives us that right to go in and exercise police powers in Colorado. It's certainly not there explicitly. Whether it might be there implicitly is another issue, but I don't think so.
Great, thank you. We did have one request, if you don't mind, Dave, if you can share your screen and put the map back up with the Western Canal on it, if you have a moment.
I will try. Okay.
And then while you're doing that, we do have one more comment that says the Western Canal starts a few miles east of Julesburg, about right on the state line. I live close to the start of it, this person said, and it dumps back into the South Platte at Ogallala.
Yeah. Number 4 is the Western Canal. So it's to me, it looks like where Big Springs would be, but yeah, it's right there, pretty close to the state line.
Perfect, thank you. And then if you can speak on this, Dave, we have a question that asks, how does the water need to be removed from the river? Can it be pumped or does it have to go through gravity diversion?
Well, a lot of the surface irrigation in Colorado and the South Platte is based on gravity diversion. The Denver plan would probably include everything they need to divert as much of the water from the South Platte and the upper reach before it hits the lower reach. And that, so they would probably do something more complicated than a more simple surface flow diversion. But their plans aren't nearly that far along. But I'm sure that they would. My guess is that they would pump from the river to get they get more water that way than they would through just a direct diversion, except for for floods. But they probably have it set up so they could do both.
Sure. And then they were just wondering how Perkins would divert, if you have an idea about that.
I'm sure surface diversion was the original plan back in the they tried to get this going, I think in the 1890s was when they started digging the ditch and stuff like that. And so that was, I'm sure that would have been a gravity diversion from the river. But if we were going to do it now and we're actually going to build a Perkins Canal and to divert the water and stuff like that, I'm sure they would use something more advanced and simple. They probably want to do something to where they could get as much water as could up to what they were entitled to.
Perfect. There was one person wondering, it's not necessarily having to do with the South Platte issue, but the proposed lake between Omaha and Lincoln that is out there. If you know anything about that, its proposed location and where the water may be coming from. I know perhaps a different topic for a different day, but maybe of interest to people on here.
Yeah, that's all these water bills, both the Perkins County Canal and the Nebraska Lake Okoboji. They're both, they've gotten votes, enough votes to be passed. So I think they'll all be approved by the legislature in some form or other. I really haven't looked into the Nebraska Lake Okoboji proposal, but I did see a story in the paper where somebody said, well, based on the map, that this is where it would be, and I can't tell you where that is, but I think I've got a picture of that somewhere. So if there's an interest, we could talk about that some other time.
All right, Dave, we have time for just one more question. Do you have a slide with your contact information, Dave, on it? I don't remember. If somebody would like to get a hold of you with further questions, there you go, daiken@unl.edu. And again, we'll post the slides and recording of this on our Center for Ag Profitability website, cap.unl.edu. Last question here is, wouldn't the senior Colorado water users that divert in the lower section and create the return flows that support flows in the lower section be in line in front of Sprog? And wouldn't these Colorado diversions provide some level of assured flows to the Nebraska Canal?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. Well, that is all the time we have for questions today. Apologize, we could not get to everybody else's, but please do visit our website, cap.unl.edu. That's cap.unl.edu. These webinars happen most Thursdays at noon. Next week, we have 2 special virtual workshops, our annual landlord-tenant cash rent workshops. We'll be presenting on newly updated cash rental rates for the state, as well as ag land values in the state. Those reports were just published on our website. Again, you can find that at cap.unl.edu. And look for the recording of this webinar as well. And I want to thank Dave very much for your time and the great information today. And again, if you have any questions, please do reach out to us. And thanks again for attending today. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you.